Hey, what's going on everybody? I'm Blitz5 and this video is scheduled to be released on September 4th, 2019, and the reason why I've done this is because this is the 1-year anniversary since PUBG left game preview and became the full version 1.0 mode of the game on the Xbox One platform. So happy 1-year anniversary to PUBG Xbox, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the current state of the game, and I figured this would also be a good opportunity to compare PUBG to 1 year ago where it was at. And coincidentally, I had made a video on my channel just over 1 year ago talking about the current state of the game then, back in the end of July of 2018. So I figured this would be perfect to kind of show where the game was at, all the updates and things that have come into the game, how bad the game was, and even talk about some of the issues that are still plaguing PUBG to this day. But before we get into that, I want to date a few milestones for PUBG as a reference. I like to do that in these kinds of videos. Back in March of 2017 is when PUBG first launched onto the PC. We all know that it was on PC first. And little known fact, PUBG is actually the best-selling PC game with over 50 million copies sold. So I had no idea when I was Googling PUBG today. This came up, and obviously it helps that Fortnite is a free game because that would probably have the most downloads. But in terms of copies sold, PUBG is number one, followed by Minecraft, then Diablo, then World of Warcraft. So getting back to topic here, PUBG came out in March of 2017, and then less than 1 year later, PUBG came out on the Xbox One in December of 2017. Then fast forward to less than 1 year, PUBG comes out in 1.0 version on PC and on the Xbox One 1 year ago today. And then later in 2018, it comes out on the PlayStation 4. And another interesting fact that I just learned recently is that Xbox participates in a game preview program, which allows games like PUBG to launch on their platform when they're not fully released yet. And unfortunately, Sony doesn't have this program, which is why PlayStation players needed to wait until the 1.0 version of the game. So with all that being said, now let's go back to the summer of 2018, 1 month before the 1.0 version of the game was about to launch on Xbox, and talk about where the game was at then. Well, at this point, only one map had actually been added into the game. This was Miramar, and Sanhok and the first ever Survivor Pass were just being tested on PC. So we actually hadn't seen that on console yet. So no Sanhok, no Survivor Pass, and at this point they were just adding digital analog movement to the game. Before this, movement was still sort of tied to WASD, and it was hard to do some diagonal movement when you were playing on console. Also, in my video from last year, I mentioned that there was no way to report players for cheating, and this was something that PUBG was working on. I thought this was crazy at first, but then I remembered originally PUBG didn't even have a spectate mode after you died in the game. This was something that was added later. On top of this, dynamic weather was just being talked about for the first time on Xbox and PC, and the discussion at this point was whether we were ever going to see this on console because of the limitations of the current generation. And let's be frank here, the game was poorly optimized on Xbox. At this point in the life cycle, I was still running the OG Xbox, and sometimes it looked like I was playing on the N64. Now fast forward 1 year later, in this year I actually upgraded to the Xbox One X with an SSD, so personally my experience has improved a lot, but there's a little bit of a bias there because I am playing on better hardware. And in this 1 year we've seen the addition of 2 extra maps, so technically we got Sanhok during the 1.0 launch, then we got Vikendi in the beginning of 2019, and we've also had 4 new Survivor Passes. Well, we're currently on the 4th one right now, so there's been a lot of updates made to the game content-wise with a lot of cosmetics, but I know that's not super important for everybody else. Just recently we had one of the biggest updates to the game with the new remastered Erangel, which is technically sort of like a 5th map in the game because now you can play Erangel Classic and custom games. And with that, over the past year, and especially with this Erangel remastered update, we've seen a ton of improvements and optimizations into the game, and this is pretty much across the board, including shooting, moving, looting, driving. Pretty much every action in the game has been improved, and with every major update I've really noticed a big improvement with moving around in the game, and just plays a little bit more fluid and smooth. So I wrote down the game has been optimized a lot. We've had a bunch of new weapons added into the game, just to name a few. We had the Mutant, the Scorpion, the Bison, the Barrel, the Desert Eagle. We had the PS4 launch. We had crossplay being announced 1 year later, or even less than 1 year later, which made huge news this year. Was hoping for that, but did not expect it to come out like that. We've had the ping system being added, emotes, like I said before, ton of cosmetics, just so many things being added to the game across the board, which has really made this game, to me, into the full 1.0 version now, as opposed to kind of last year where it was at. So I'm sure there's a few things I probably missed here, but I forgot to mention the flare gun and the newly added BRDM. I had to include these in because they make a pretty big impact on the game, and I think it was a good improvement to bring some more excitement into the match for PUBG. So those are the major improvements we've seen over the past year in PUBG, but I do want to talk about some of the issues that are still plaguing PUBG on console, and I also want to go over some of the topics that you see often discussed in the community. So let's talk about the issues first. So we've always kind of dealt with loading issues and optimization issues in the game. A lot of that stuff has been fixed, like I mentioned before, but a lot of times you still see Play-Doh buildings, some weird loading effects that happen, things loading in last minute like a bush or a tree that seem like there's a person right next to you, but it's just loading in late. That stuff I can kind of get over, and to me doesn't bother me too bad. But the crashing and disconnecting to me has to be one of the most frustrating issues, and I run into this a lot, especially because I play almost every single day. And the disconnecting I can get over because that happens in other games. I've disconnected out of Call of Duty, out of Battlefield, etc., etc., etc. But the crashing back to the dashboard has to be one of the most frustrating things. And again, I've seen that happen in other games, but it happens once in a blue moon. There's been times when I've crashed multiple times in a game. There's times when you're playing for a half hour and you crash at the very end. And I think that's what makes it the most frustrating, when you've put so much time into a game and then just to crash back to the dashboard and lose all your progress is just ridiculous. And this has happened to pretty much every player at a really widespread high rate. So for the game to be out this long and for it not to be fixed, to me is a huge issue, even though right now it's not that bad. But the issue is ebbed and flowed. Sometimes it's horrific, sometimes it's fixed, and then an update comes around and it goes right back to being bad again. So hopefully they can get that kind of fixed. And then talking about some of the community discussion here, this is something we've heard forever, is 60 frames per second. Everybody wants this, I get that, but I think it's pretty much known at this point that the current console generation, Xbox One and PS4, are kind of limiting us from seeing 60 frames per second. I would love to see PUBG comment on this a little bit more. And then also something that I would like to see from the content creator perspective, something you see on PC, is replay and kill cam. I know a lot of people would like to see this, to be able to go through their replays, see when somebody killed them, where they got shot from, how that person saw them, etc. And for me, it could do a lot of cool stuff with videos. But again, I feel like that fits into the same bucket as the 60 frames per second, as the consoles are just kind of limiting us at this point, and also limiting PUBG from adding this into the game. So hopefully they can implement one or two or even all three of these things in the next generation of consoles. No really word on that yet. We're still 1 year away, but if you look at all the progress that PUBG has made over the past year, just think about how much more progress they can make in the next year. It's kind of crazy to think about. Who knows where they will go. So want to say huge shout out to PUBG. They've done a great job improving this game. I had a lot of faith in them. The game is so incredible at its core that I think a lot of us, including myself, has stuck around during some of the bad times. And you knew, or at least I did, that the game was going to come back. Some people are negative, but I stayed pretty optimistic. I knew this game had a lot to kind of bring and a lot to still come into the game. And they're showing that now with all of these updates, and there's just going to be more cool features that come into the game in the future. So let me know what you guys think of PUBG. Let me know what you guys think of the improvements over the past year. Is your experience better? Has it improved? What console are you playing on? You can leave all that information down in the comments below. As always, if you found this video entertaining, make sure you drop a like or subscribe if you haven't already for weekly video game content and daily streams right here on YouTube. As always, thank you all for watching. I'm Blitz5, and peace out.